Welcome, welcome. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Pleasure to have you on my show. How have you been doing?
I'm doing really well. Had a busy fall, but it's great to be here, and I'm excited to be on the show.
I appreciate this. So, you stayed in Taiwan for a year before.
Yes,
Can you give us a brief introduction of who you are and where you're from?
definitely. So my name is Kelly Anderson. I'm 24 years old, and I am from Washington, D.C. in the United States. And I lived in Taiwan for 1 year, from August 2023 until July 2024. And I came to Taiwan because I was a teacher there. I did a program called Fulbright that the U.S. government does with the Taiwan government. So I moved to Taipei and I taught in 10 different high schools all over Taiwan. So I was living in Taipei, but I would commute all over. So some of my schools were in Kaohsiung, some in Taichung, some in Hualien even. So all over the place. But I would go around to different schools and I was a debate teacher. So I taught students classes about communicating in English, how to use oral communication better, how to be more persuasive, that sort of thing. And an amazing experience. I loved all my students and the schools I worked in, and I really loved living in Taiwan too because it was an incredible country.
So, how long have you been doing debate before you come to Taiwan?
So I started debate during my first year of high school. So when I was about 15 years old. And I joined the debate team just kind of as a way to make friends and meet people. I didn't really know that much about debate or really what the club or activity was about. I was just kind of looking for friends at the start of new school.
Mm.
So I joined it, and I ended up really loving what we did. I really liked kind of learning about new ideas, practicing things like writing speeches, getting ready to argue with people. Even though I started it because I was just trying to meet some new people, it really turned into kind of a passion for me, something that I enjoyed doing, really loved. So I continued doing it through high school. I got to go to debate tournaments where I'd compete against other schools. And I actually kept doing it when I was in university. At a lot of universities in the United States, they'll have debate teams too that you can join. And it's a similar thing. You'll travel to other universities to go to competitions and research debate topics and get ready to argue. So I kept doing that through college, and it was great because it helped me learn a lot, to get better at using my own voice and writing and that sort of thing. But I also made a lot of friends to it. So a lot of my best friends today are people I met in debate, and it gave me a lot of cool opportunities. So I'm very grateful for it.
You literally just opened the domain of debate first. And me right now, I'm into it. I'm fully in love with debate. And I feel like
That's
debate for
awesome.
me, it broadens my horizon to a point and gives me deeper knowledge in different fields.
It's awesome to hear.
Thank you so much for being my coach for this semester. I feel like I definitely elevated my debate ability, enunciation ability dramatically. Just as an add-on question, what's like your parents or like your loved ones' perception of you coming to Taiwan at the very first point? Were they worried about it? Were they concerned about it?
I think a lot of my friends and family in the United States were supportive. They thought it would be a great experience to come to Taiwan to, learn more about the country, to get experience studying Chinese, to just immerse myself in the culture. I think some people were definitely a little bit scared, maybe, because they don't know as much about Taiwan. So a common kind of idea that some Americans have is, oh, Taiwan could be really dangerous because China might invade
Mm.
or there might be a war with China. So there were a lot of people who said, are you scared that China is going to invade? And I kind of had to explain to them, well, that's not really how it works. People don't
Mhm.
walk around every day here worried about China, really. So that was one common kind of thing that people said to me. But overall, I think people were very positive about the idea. They thought it was a great opportunity to go live somewhere, very different, to learn about a new culture, and to have a great experience.
Yeah, and your journey on coming to Taiwan actually went smoothly, right?
That's right. No, it was so easy to move here. I thought Taiwanese people are so friendly and welcoming. I felt really at home from the start. So I really had no issues or problems. And I just had so much fun and a really amazing time living there.
Sure. What your typical day in Taiwan looks like? Like, Can you just give me a walkthrough of your typical day?
Definitely. So usually I wake up at maybe 7 a.m. or so and get dressed and ready, then walk out the door and get some breakfast. So usually go get some danbing or go to Seven for some sandwiches and coffee, and then usually go to take the MRT to Taipei Main Station, and I have to get on the HS. So I take the HSR to Taichung to go to Changhua, or I go to Kaohsiung, other places like that. So take the HSR to another city in Taiwan, and then from there I'd usually have to take a taxi to the school that I was going to, or maybe the teacher would pick me up. So I'd commute to the school for probably 1.5 or 2 hours, and then I'd arrive at the school that I was teaching after the day, and my debate classes were always 2 hours long. So I'd have 2 hours to teach the class. I'd have sometimes 20 students, sometimes like 40 students. So I teach my classes for the day and then usually go back to Taipei. And when I was back in Taipei in the evening, I went to a Chinese class. So I took Chinese classes every day, actually at a school in Taipei. And then after that, I could go home and sometimes I go to the gym or see some friends, I get some dinner, that sort of thing, and relax a little bit. But I really loved exploring, seeing new neighborhoods and new cities.
Oh, I think it's really impressive that you learn Chinese. Because I think
Uh,
for like a foreigner to muster up their courage to learn Chinese is definitely really hard. How do you feel
I
about
really
learning
appreciate
Chinese
it.
overall?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm still not very good, so I'll say that. But I thought it was really a great opportunity to learn because I'm sure, as learning languages really helps you, I think, understand a new culture a little bit better, and obviously just being able to talk even a little bit in Chinese, I think helps a lot in Taiwan, with just kind of understanding the place more and getting to do more things. So I was really lucky and just grateful that I had the chance to do that.
Great, amazing. How was like the proximity to MRT stations, to convenience stores, etc., etc.?
Yeah, I think it was one of my favorite parts of living in Taiwan. It was so convenient and really, really easy to get around, especially I lived very close to an MRT stop. I lived near Guting MRT in Taipei. Like I said, I took the HSR almost every day, and the HSR was so great. It's really amazing to me that you can go all the way from Taipei to Kaohsiung in just like 1.5 hours. Because in the United States, not as easy. There are a lot of parts of the country in the United States where it's basically only car. They don't really have any trains or any buses. And there are a few parts, a few big cities where it's kind of closer to Taipei. They do have good metro, they good buses, that sort of thing, but generally not as easy at all. So I was really happy for that. And I think Taiwan is just very easy with other stuff too. So like getting food delivered was always very easy. Finding new restaurants is very easy, all that sort of thing. That 7-Eleven was great. Seven has so much stuff to like help you out. So you can get train tickets there, you can get a SIM card there, like all this stuff. And Seven in the United States is not as good. Kind of doesn't have as much stuff and definitely not as convenient.
Yeah, Taiwanese 7 or like convenience store in general are definitely like famous for their multifunctional service.
Exactly.
Um, what are some culture shocks you encountered when you first came to Taiwan?
Let's see. Good question. So some big differences. A convenience store culture is actually very different just because they don't really have that in the United States. So you have 7-Eleven, but it just doesn't offer many things. So I came to Taiwan and I was like, wow, this is so cool that you can get so much stuff in 7-Eleven. And also they have them all over. Like in the United States, it's 7-Eleven every like 4 or 5 kilometers. But I feel like in Taiwan, it's like every 2 blocks you see one. So that was cool. I think United States has a little bit more of a culture of having like small talk between people. And what I mean by that is just like you're waiting in line for something and you kind of start talking to the person next to you, having a little conversation. Like people in Taiwan do that a little bit less. And when I came, I didn't know Chinese as well. So it was also kind of difficult to do that. And the other thing is standing in line for like the MRT or stuff like that. Taiwanese people love to like get in a nice line, kind of very orderly. And people in the United States don't do that for some reason. But I think it's a good idea that people in Taiwan do it. But when I came, I was like kind of confused about that. So that was kind of funny to see.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Was like the working life in Taiwan versus the States? Is it more
Mm,
strenuous, more pressurized, or is it like more chillaxing in Taiwan?
yeah, that's a good question. A lot of my friends told me in Taiwan that it's more difficult, more strenuous, and a little bit more demanding. For my job, I thought it was not too bad. I thought all of the teachers I worked with and like my boss were very understanding and very kind. I think my experience is probably a little bit different, because I was a foreigner and I was kind of working in a lot of different schools and I was only there for 1 year. So I think probably a different experience than someone who lived there for a longer time and maybe had like a corporate job or work with the government, that sort of thing. But I've heard from a lot of people that Taiwan work culture is very, very stressful, has very long hours and kind of very demanding. And particularly like teachers at Bushiban, sometimes I hear like it's really difficult there. So I never worked at a Bushiban, but that's something I've heard.
Yeah, Taiwanese people usually work overtime. I think
Yeah, yeah.
is it often or is it common for workers, employees to work overtime in the States?
Some jobs, yes, but I think mostly in the United States, once you kind of leave your office, leave your job, you're done. Don't have to worry
Yeah,
about the job anymore.
exactly. How is the cost of living? Is it prohibitively expensive or straight up affordable?
So compared to the United States, things are much cheaper than I was used to. So like the cost of food, going out for a meal, in the United States probably costs about 300 to 600 NT. And in Taiwan, I felt like, usually go out for a meal, you could have as cheap as like 100 to 200 NT. So my prices in the United States were a lot higher than in Taiwan. But I know that, in Taiwan, generally like income is a little bit lower. When I was in Taiwan, I made 50,000 NT per month, which I thought was okay for paying for like had to rent an apartment, had to get food, go around. So I thought that was pretty good actually. But also, a lot of people I talked to in Taiwan said the price of housing is very expensive and very difficult for like a lot of young people, especially to find a place to live that's affordable. I do think that was kind of true. I thought housing was a little bit expensive um, compared to some other things.
Yeah, in this like modern day, a lot of teenagers are like suffering from mortgages. They have to like borrow
Yeah,
money from the bank, and it just like stick with them all the way to like 60s, 70s till they finish
yeah,
like paying all of their mortgage. I think this is a
that
really
sounds really
common thing
difficult.
that's really
No,
happening in
definitely.
Taiwan.
Yeah.
But by the way, how easy was it to like navigate in Taiwan with English?
Mm. I think pretty easy. I was a little bit worried when I came because when I first moved to Taiwan, I didn't know any Chinese, so I was a little bit worried, like, oh my God, it'll be so difficult. But I thought it was pretty easy. In Taipei and Kaohsiung, the MRT has English signs pretty much everywhere. Google Maps I can use on my phone works very well. So that was all good. I think that sometimes when I was in a little bit more rural areas, kind of farther away from Taipei, maybe it was a little bit harder. So going to Hualien, Dong, those sort of places, there are just kind of fewer people who spoke English. So sometimes I was a little bit confused when I had to take a taxi somewhere or go on a bus, but overall not too bad. I thought Taiwanese people spoke really good English overall, and not everyone does, but there were enough people who did who can kind of help you if you don't know Chinese.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I noticed is that when you're like Ubering in the States, usually the taxi driver is gonna have like a little chit chat with you along the ride.
Yeah,
But when you're
that's
hailing a
true.
ride in Taiwan, usually they don't talk to you.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, exactly. No, that's kind of what I was saying with small talk earlier is in the United States, people are more likely to just kind of start having a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. How was Taiwanese people's like personality in general
Oh
that
yeah.
you notice? Are they like
Oh, it was
showing a
great.
great
Yeah.
hospitality and stuff like this?
Definitely. No, Taiwanese people had such great hospitality. So, at your school at Chingcheng, I felt so welcomed by the teachers. Everyone was so kind when I came on the first day. They had, little gifts for me and said, welcome to our school, and we're really, really kind. When my father came to visit me while I was in Taiwan, and he came to Changhua with me, and they were so nice and said hello to him and stuff, which was really kind. And outside of that, people I met just like, once or twice when I was in Taipei. They'd be really friendly and they'd say, "Oh, hey, would you like to come have dinner with me or like get a meal together?" Really nice stuff like that, which I appreciated. And my other coworkers, like teachers I worked with, were very kind. One of the teachers in Kaohsiung that I worked with, she invited me to her house, and I spent a weekend at her house, just sleeping there and talking with her children and getting to meet her family. So people were so friendly and really welcoming and kind. That was one of my favorite parts living there.
So it's really easy to fit in as a foreigner in Taiwan's culture and
Definitely.
society.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
people look out for you, if they see you, like, maybe you look kinda confused on the street, they'll say, "Oh, do you need some help?" Or let me, like, give you, some assistance, that sort of thing, which is really nice.
Exactly. For what kind of people, in your opinion, like Taiwan is not for them to live in? Or you feel like, oh, Taiwan is like accommodating all sorts of people?
I think they're generally very welcoming to everyone. Yeah, and certainly to me. So, my experience, everyone was super nice to me. And I'm sure it's not the same for everyone. I'm sure there are some foreigners who maybe come to Taiwan and don't have such a good time. But I also, when I was living in Taiwan, I went to a lot of other countries. So, went to Japan, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines. So, saw a lot of other places in the region. And I think that kind of seeing how foreigners are received there and how people treat them there, I think Taiwan does a really good job of welcoming them and kind of appreciating them. So I was
Yeah.
I was impressed by that.
Thank you. As a Taiwanese, I'm really pleased and pleasure to hear this. All right,
That's
let's talk about like your working field, which is education in Taiwan.
yes.
What
Mhm.
are some distinctions you kind of found out between Taiwanese education and the education in the States?
Good question. So I think in Taiwan's education system, there's a big focus on preparing for tests and a big focus on memorizing things, on kind of learning a lot of information to be able to repeat it on the test. And that's a little bit different in the United States because the United States, they also have big exams too, in a way that's similar to Taiwan. But I think that in the United States, teachers really want to teach students how to be creative, how to kind of think for themselves, how to express ideas. I think Taiwan focuses a little bit less on that. So, the focus in the United States, a lot of it is like creativity and kind of how to get students to think on their own. I think that's a little bit less true in Taiwan, where the focus is just we want you to be ready to do well in the test. So yeah, I think in Taiwan, there's a lot of pressure to do well on big exams, a little bit more than the United States, where they have some tests, but it's like not quite as big a deal. And then I think the United States education system focuses a lot more on developing creativity, on helping students learn how to express themselves, kind of think on their own, sort of soft skills that are a little bit different.
Yeah, exactly. Like from my own experience, I remember vividly every single time when we are about to have an exam, like a big term exam, we took a stop, a pause, a week prior of our debate class. Every single
Yeah,
time when
yeah,
we're having exams.
exactly.
I feel like our teachers want us to be on track and just to prep up for the exam. I think that's
Definitely.
like their ideology towards it.
No, that's a great point.
Do you feel like Taiwanese education is more conservative, whereas like the US education is more liberal?
I do think so. I think the US education system is a little bit more like diverse or broad. So, like in the United States, there's this idea called liberal arts education. And that just means that you learn kind of about different things. So, not just math and science, but also like reading and writing. And kind of the idea is they want to develop people who have the whole concept of learning, like a lot of different stuff as opposed to just one area. I think Taiwanese education maybe a little bit less so. It can depend a little bit. There are schools in the United States that are different, that are very focused on the test, and I'm sure there are schools in Taiwan that are a little bit more focused on liberal arts and kind of teaching all the subjects. So I won't generalize too much, but yeah, I think the United States has a little bit more focus on kind of liberal arts and a large spectrum of options.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like in the States, like school system is more multifaceted, whereas Taiwan, like for me, um, I think the main stress that the school kind of put on us is exam. It's definitely a big thing. I think
Yeah,
especially like college entrance exam is really a big thing, and I think to a point, it's really stressing me out, and it's super taxing.
Oh, definitely. I just always felt really bad for you guys and for my students because I could tell that it's really stressful to have those exams, and especially the college entrance exam. Just a lot of pressure, and I felt bad for you guys that you had that on you.
What are some common personality traits that you spotted on Taiwanese students compared to students from the States?
Interesting. Taiwanese students were really respectful, but they're really good at focusing during class, much more than students in the United States, actually. So, a common problem in schools in the United States, even really good ones, is students who are kind of distracted or don't pay attention to the teacher. I think it's because they don't have a lot of respect um, for the teacher, but also kind of learning. Like they kind of show up to school and like it's not such a big deal for them. They don't really want to be there. And I thought students in Taiwan did a much better job of just paying attention, of kind of acting very present in the class and kind of working hard while they were there. So maybe they don't want to be there too, but they did a good job of hiding it and kind of making it seem like they were paying attention, which was really nice as a teacher. So yeah, I think that there's a lot more good feelings and respect given to the process of education in Taiwan, whereas in the United States, that's not always so true.
Exactly. Just my own curiosity. Do you feel like in Taiwan, in classes, it's less interactive?
I think so. So in the classes that I taught, I kind of tried to make them interactive and like ask you guys questions and stuff. But from what I've heard, it seems like that's not always so true. That's a little bit less common. I think when I taught my classes and I kind of asked students questions or tried to make it interactive, I think some students were a little bit surprised by that, or didn't expect it as much, which makes me think that it's not so common.
Usually, in foreign teachers' classes are like those classes which we say it's more interactive. And
Interesting.
usually Taiwanese teachers' classes, it's not really that interactive in a way.
Mm.
And even like the teacher trying to spike some questions, the students don't really want to answer it. And I think for Taiwanese teachers, they usually just prepare a slide for the answer like from themselves. They don't really expect any answer from the students, but they still ask it.
Yeah. When I first started teaching, there were actually a lot of people who kind of warned me. They said, oh, if you ask a question, they may not answer, like you just said. But I will say that actually, I thought students were generally pretty good, in my class at least. They were pretty good at answering. And there were a few times where no one wanted to say anything, but overall, I was pretty impressed actually by they did engage and kind of wanted to share their ideas.
I think that ends like our talk on education. Let's move on to some common beliefs I found out from an outsider of the States, and you're just trying to validate it or like debunk it. All
Yeah.
right. So firstly is that everyone in the States is obsessed with fast food.
So I'd say generally no. I think fast food is popular, McDonald's, Burger King, all these places. But I actually thought it was a little bit more popular in Taiwan. So like McDonald's, at least where I'm from, people go to McDonald's sometimes, like every once in a while, but it's not really a regular thing that you have. Like only if you're like really in a rush or like maybe having a long drive somewhere and you just need to eat quickly, they go to McDonald's. But I know a lot of people in Taiwan really like McDonald's and like we're going there a lot. So I thought that was kind of interesting to see.
All right, understand, but that's kind of like a common belief because I think the obesity in the States it's kind of high.
That's true. Yeah, a lot of
So
problems
that
with
kind of
people being
makes
overweight.
people feel like probably people from the States are all obsessed with fast food. But that's no.
Yeah, I'd say generally no, but you're right that there are a lot of people who have problems with obesity. I think one cause of that is portions of food are a lot bigger here. That you get a lot more food, and also it's kind of less convenient to walk places to take public transportation. So there's a lot of people who just kind of drive everywhere, and I think that also makes it harder for people to have like a lower weight because if you're walking all the time, it's easier to stay active and fit. But a lot of people, that's not the case.
So move on to the second question. The safety in the States is not so good. You often see like assassination, mass gunshots all over everywhere. Is that true?
Yeah. So I'd say no. You don't just walk down the street and like see someone getting shot. But it's true that I think the United States has a lot more safety issues than Taiwan. So there are people who do have guns. There are people who get shot. And it's not so bad that like, I don't walk down the street and see people getting shot every day. But it happens. Bad stuff can happen. And there are a lot of crimes, especially violent crimes that can involve a gun. I feel like in Taiwan, you don't really have to think so much. Don't have to be worried about that really because people don't really have guns in Taiwan. There's not really violent crime, But in the United States, if you go out at night or if you're, walking somewhere, you are kind of thinking about it like, man, something could happen potentially. So, hopefully that never occurs, and I'm hopeful that it won't, but it is just a little bit more of a risk in the United States. That's true.
Yeah, sure. Do you feel like U.S. government should prohibit the possession of guns, or do you feel like that's a way for citizens to protect themselves?
Yeah, I think people should only have guns in accordance with the laws. So, there are a lot of people who commit crimes with guns who shouldn't have them. So that's a really big problem that I think the government needs to address.
Last but not least is that the States has a very diverse population, but people often stay within their own communities. Is that
Interesting, yeah.
true?
Yeah, I'd say yes and no. It depends a little bit. So it is true that the United States has many different types of people, so people who come from all sorts of different countries, but also people who are born in the United States of different races, religions, all sorts of things. And it is true that sometimes there are certain like areas, so certain towns, certain neighborhoods where it's like more of a certain type of people, and that it kind of becomes hard, I think, for people to integrate, to like mix in and go from place to place. So yes, in some cases, but there are a lot of other places where people are all mixed together. So, New York City, for example, very famous for having all different immigrant groups, different races. There are a lot of places in New York City where they're very close together, where they're very intermixed. Or, take a city like Los Angeles. So Los Angeles has many people from Latin America, so Mexican people, Hispanic people, but also lots of Asians. And Los Angeles, the Asians and Hispanic people will be very close together, right next to each other, living together. So I'd say that sometimes there can be issues where it's very separate, but also I think one of the coolest things about the United States is that a lot of times those different groups come together.
Yeah, because I think most of the people who are considering to move to the States, they're concerned that they cannot find their own community to assimilate into. So there's definitely some opportunities for people to like get into their own circle, but there's also some places where they cannot like blend in that smoothly. Right.
Definitely.
Right. Okay. So what are three good things and three bad things about Taiwan from your own perspective?
Good question. Three good things. One, convenience. So easy to get around. Convenience store culture is so nice. Just feels very don't have to worry about a lot with just kind of living day to day. Second, food. Really love the food. So cho tofu, beef noodle soup, all sorts of good stuff. Scallion pancake, danbing. Like I have so many favorite Taiwanese foods that are really awesome. And the people, I think Taiwanese people are so friendly, so welcoming, always looking out for you. Never trying to take advantage of you or do anything bad. I'm just really lovely, awesome people. Let's see the negative things. Harder to think of because I really like Taiwan so much. And I think sometimes um diversity. Coming from the United States, I was really used to all sorts of different people. You can get kind of like food from all sorts of different cultures and that sort of thing. It's a little bit less true in Taiwan, although Taiwan still, I think, has people from all over, so that's cool. I think, yeah, cost of housing can be tough. Like I said, it wasn't so much a problem for me, but I've heard that's a big issue. People have trouble finding really affordable housing. And then last thing I'd say, school or work culture can be a little bit intense. It just puts a lot of pressure on students to get ready for the college entrance exam. I think some employees feel a lot of pressure from their boss to work overtime, that sort of stuff, and that can be difficult too.
Yeah, I think for most Taiwanese people, they're like studying relentlessly, studying so hard just to get into a great college, and they're thinking like getting a great college can help them to get into a great company and earn a great pension after they're retired. I think that's a
Yeah,
really common like ideology for a Taiwanese person.
definitely. Definitely.
All right. That moves on to the next part. What are three great things and three bad things about the States?
Things I really like, I'd say first, diversity in the United States. So there are people from all over the world who look all sorts of different ways, who think different things. And I think that makes it a great country. It's because we learn to incorporate those differences, and they really benefit everyone. Let's see. Second, I would say strong sense of like democracy. So I think there's a real chance for different sorts of people to like, voice their opinions and beliefs, to get involved in the government, to try to change things. And it's really cool to see that happen. And let's see. Last thing, I would say there's a lot of opportunities for people to kind of move up in society. So even if you're come here as an immigrant or you're born very poor, I think the United States, there's a lot of chances for people to kind of move up to build better lives for themselves. And that's really, really amazing to see. Three bad things. I think it is definitely less convenient. So I think there are a lot of parts of the country where you need a car and it's really hard to drive around. There's bad traffic. So that's not so fun. I would say cost of living, especially in big cities. So living in like Washington, D.C., New York City can be very expensive for renting an apartment, but also just food, just going out and doing stuff costs a lot of money. Last thing would probably be violent crime. I think that it's just too bad that you have to worry about that even a little bit. And there are places where it's worse than others. But yeah, I think if I could remove one thing from the United States, it would be just the risk that, some issue with getting shot or something really bad happening to you.
Thanks for giving like pros and cons on both countries. I think that wraps up this episode, and thank you for coming. I'm really appreciative, truly
Of course,
grateful.
Eric, thank you
And
so much for having me. It was so cool to work with you at Xinjiang, and I hope you're doing well. And like I
yeah,
said, I really love Taiwan, so it was awesome to just come on here and talk with you about it. Thank you.
yeah, really honored. So last but not least, if you have one chance to give like one message to the world, what would it be?
My advice is to go and try to learn about different people and places as much as you can. So when you're in high school, when you're in Taiwan, I think you should just talk to different types of people. So people who do different jobs, people who are different ages, people from different backgrounds, just kind of learn about what's out there and expose yourself to some different scenarios. And then as you get older, if you have the chance to study different languages, if you have the chance to travel, absolutely go for those. Travel both within Taiwan, travel around other countries, and if you ever get the opportunity, definitely come to the United States and tell me because I'll host you and say hello and show you
Yeah,
around.
definitely, definitely. Really excited, really thrilled to visit the States after I graduate from high school. I'm actually trying to go into a trajectory which those normal Taiwanese students won't opt for. For example, like me doing podcasting, I think most of the Taiwanese students won't be courageous enough to do this. I think so.
Definitely.
Yeah, so
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
I'm trying
I
to
think
step out
that's so
of my
cool to
comfort zone.
yeah, yeah. No, I think that's so cool and doing something like this is really special and unique and yeah, it just shows that curiosity and desire to kind of be a little bit different, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think that's the end of this episode, and thanks for coming, Kelly.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric.